Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of 3-Star Rift Clears. We are still working our way through the Lambda Rifts, which is the last set of rifts that's available in the base set of the game. Today we will be specifically focusing on 5 rifts, and the rifts in question are the ones that are currently outlined on your screen with the arrows. So let's go ahead and jump into the action and clear out these 5 rifts with the 3-star clear conditions met on all of them. Now, if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, as the subscription is free and easy, and we just hit 85 subscribers, which brings us only 15 away from our 100 subscriber goal by the channel's first anniversary. If we could hit that, that would be absolutely fantastic. And as always, leave a like on the video if you're enjoying the content. Without further ado, let's jump into today's rifts. The first rift we'll be looking at is a level 40 ability trial featuring Doctor Strange. Now this is the Doctor Strange fight from the main story quest with the added quirk that we need to defeat him with our abilities and synergies doing increased and additional damage, but every other damage output source dealing less damage, but allowing us to recoup our EP at an increased rate. Now, this is not the only thing that you need to do, as there is a little stretch of the main map that you need to make your way through before you actually get into the Doctor Strange fight, and you will have to do both phases, both the base style fight with Doctor Strange and the Dormammu empowered section of the fight. You will need to do this without getting any teammates incapacitated, as well as clearing it out in 1 minute and 50 seconds or less in order to get the 3-star clear on this. But we're going to show you what a run like that looks like right now. So the best strategy that I've found for getting through these rifts in a quick manner is actually using characters that have increased neutral movement speed. In this example, Miles Morales is going to be our best example, as he can web sling across the top of the enemies that we are encountering. Now, the next thing that we'll need to do is take out that little fire pillar, as well as these winged parademons here, as we need to defeat those enemies in order to lift this segment up off of the ground and unlock the next section of the map. Now, at this point, it's really just running through a couple of the areas in order to get up to the Doctor Strange fight. And Miles does pretty well at traversing this area, though he does get a little hung up on some of these lips if you're not careful. So do keep that in mind if Miles is the character you use to traverse the walkway. As soon as we come through that final portal, it will activate the Doctor Strange fight. And honestly, at this point, you just want to burn him down with as many synergy attacks as you can. Now, the reason I choose to focus on synergies is because it not only increases your own damage output, but it involves the damage output of other characters that you are not controlling but are part of your team. So we got through that section of the fight very, very quickly, and we are now into the second fight with Doctor Strange. And his attacks are a little more empowered at this stage, which makes him a little more difficult to take on, but as you continue to attack into him using your team synergy attacks, you're really not going to have a whole lot of trouble taking him on. And with one final adamantium uppercut from Wolverine, we've got this fight cleared out with the 3-star clear condition in that run. The second rift that we'll be looking at today is a level 42 boss wave rift, where we need to defeat Mysterio, Venom, and it's important to remember that the Venom that we will be taking on is the electro-infused Venom, not base Venom, as well as Corvus Glaive. This is actually a pretty simple trial to take on, especially if you focus on the main boss characters using your synergy and extreme attacks. No quirks, you just want to bring in the strongest team as you possibly can to this fight. Additionally, you need to get through the fight with 2 or fewer teammate incapacitations and clear out the fight in 4 minutes and 30 seconds or less. But we're going to show you that fight right now. So there are a couple of different styles of fights like this. Sometimes as you take down the main enemy, it will spawn in the other 2 that you're needing to eliminate. And that does happen to be the case here. We take Mysterio out very, very quickly with a series of attacks from Wolverine and his adamantium uppercut there. That spawns in Venom. Now, he has some symbiote surge attacks, and if you get hit by some of his abilities, you can be staggered out due to the electricity effect that comes down on that attack. Now, at this point, I've switched off of Wolverine because we need to prioritize getting as much damage in with synergy attacks as possible with the stagger bar depleted. So if any of my characters are running low on that stagger bar, I do tend to switch off of them in order to allow more consistent and reliable damage to be used during that period of vulnerability. Now we've got Venom struck down again, so we switch over to Gambit to dish out some of the deadly deal, and that's actually going to do it for Venom, and that prompts the entrance of Corvus Glaive in just a few moments after. Now, Corvus is one of the more annoying characters to fight in general, and he does spawn in a couple of his Reality Stone clones into this fight, which you do have to take into consideration. But at this point, all of our characters have their extreme abilities online, so our main priority is busting down Corvus's stagger gauge, and from there, we're just going to unleash every single extreme attack that we have as soon as he becomes vulnerable. Now, it does become a little bit difficult to do so when we are low on our EP for our different attacks, but as you continue to lay into Corvus, you'll be able to regain some of that back, and within a relatively short amount of time, gain the advantage from his stagger and subsequently unleash all of your extreme attacks. If you prioritize it like this, you should easily be able to take out a solid chunk of Corvus's health, and with that final adamantium uppercut from Wolverine, we get the 3-star clear in one fell swoop. The third rift of today's video is the level 43 survival rift, where we need to defeat Supergiant. Supergiant isn't incredibly difficult to take on, but she does have a couple of interesting quirks, including inverted controls and slowed movement speed for each of your characters. In addition to those standard quirks which she has with her fight, she also requires in this confrontation to have a non-stop onslaught of attacks, really, as the HP of each of your characters will slowly drop, but laying into the enemies present will allow you to regain some of your health back. However, do keep in mind that if you lose any of your characters in this fight, you will not be able to revive them. Honestly, even if you could, I would highly recommend that you steer clear of it, because you're not going to have enough time to waste on reviving a teammate when your own health is dropping. It's just wouldn't be worth it, so it's beside the point, because it's not even something you can do. The additional things that you need to keep in mind for this fight is you need to get through it with only having one teammate or less incapacitated over the course of the fight, as well as scoring 250,000 points, which, as long as you get to the end with all of your characters intact and take some time to focus on the grunt characters that spawn in, you really shouldn't have anything to worry about. There's no time constraint really, so you've just got to lay into it, and that's what we're going to do right now. So again, my least favorite thing with these fights is the fact that you start losing your health before you are even able to make a playable action. That's just frustrating and, in my opinion, poor game design, but it's not anything super trivial. You're not down to like a third of your health or anything by the time the fight starts, so I can look past it. Honestly, my main priority at this point is to keep the dangerous ground from Gambit and the Electroweb from Miles Morales up as frequently as I can, as those do count as sources of damage output and will reliably feed health back to those two characters. If you ever do get in a pinch, you can just use one of your stronger abilities or synergy attacks on the main opponent that you are trying to take on. Now, additionally to having Supergiant, she does spawn in some characters that you wouldn't normally see her associated with, namely some of these charged Mindless One characters, which do drop some of the energy orbs, as well as some Sentinels, which will pop up later. Honestly, I'm looking to absorb as much of the energy-based damage with that rock, but you don't really need to focus on that, as again, we're not looking for a time-based trial, we're looking for a score-based trial. It does provide some decent attack damage if you are able to charge up that rock and then throw it into the confrontation, but it's not essential to the gameplay. At this point, Thanos is not looking super great, so we needed to swap over to him to hopefully prevent him from dying, and I'm using his ability that allows him to teleport around the stage and throw out some punches. Gambit is in a similarly not so great state, so at this point I'm resorting to the Deadly Deal, as yes, it burns through his EP, but it allows you to regain a lot of your health back in this type of a confrontation. Thanos is looking a little bit dire again, so at this point I go ahead and lay into Supergiant, and I pop the extreme attacks perhaps a little prematurely, but it does allow my entire team to get up to basically full health before entering into the second phase of the fight here against Supergiant. Supergiant is now into her second phase, and this is where things tend to get a little trickier because she switches up her attacking styles and summons in some opponents that aren't so fun to fight against, as most of them explode upon coming in proximity with the characters that you are controlling. Now, admittedly, you don't take as much damage if you are not controlling the character in question, but it still doesn't make for an overly fun time. At this point, we're looking pretty good. We do want to switch over to Miles, as we need to bolster his hit points a little bit, as he's looking a bit peakish. So using some more of the Electroweb's attacks and the Venom strikes should allow us to regain his health and keep him out of that red area. You can also keep an eye out for any of those health orbs that are dropped by enemies you defeat as you progress and continue through. Miles is looking a little bit better at this stage, so I switch over to Thanos, looking to get some additional damage in, hopefully. And that rock gets some, but it doesn't ultimately do as much as I was hoping that it might. So we resort back to the teleporting attack to get a little bit further across the area. Thanos at this point is looking a little bit better, so I'm mainly choosing to focus on his beam attack as its reliable damage, and even provides a health recoup on enemies with a stagger bar. At this point, the Sentinels are being summoned in. This is similar to what you see with the Magneto fight, where if you do not take them out, they will explode and cause massive amounts of damage in the area that they affect. But at this point, we're really just looking to utilize them for their cores, as that allows us to take on Supergiant in a weakened state. And with the final deployment of all of our extreme attacks there, it does allow us to take the 3-star victory with this fight. The fourth rift of today's video is one of my least favorite styles, not because of the ultimate difficulty, but because I really don't like the fight against Claw. It's a very annoying fight. But in this one, what you need to do is face off against Claw and his powerful allies. It doesn't disclose it here, but the allies you will need to keep an eye out for are Juggernaut and Electro. And they're not exactly fun characters because you are fighting Claw in the confined space where you would normally take on his boss fight. So he still ricochets off the walls, and furthermore you've got to deal with two very annoying and large area of effect characters. To get through this rift with the 3-star clear, you need to get through it with 1 or fewer teammate incapacitations, which is manageable, though frustrating at times, especially with the attacks that Claw throws out, as well as finishing in 3 minutes or less. So we're going to show you how to do that 3-minute criteria right now. So luckily, right off the start of the fight, we really only have Claw. There are a couple of these green aim soldiers, which I highly dislike, because not only do they deal damage periodically if you stand in their particle effects, but they will also kind of stagger you out as you get too close to them as well. Claw likes to teleport around the battle arena a little bit, but at this point I'm really just looking to burst him down as quickly and concisely as possible. Fortunately, you will not have to deal with Juggernaut or Electro until you get him into the second stage of his fight, which is going to be right here. Even upon transitioning into Phase 2 of Claw's fight, it doesn't immediately prompt the appearance of any of the other powerful allies. So at this point, we are looking to burn him down as quickly as possible, as the area of effect attacks and the zipping around the arena is easily the most annoying part of this confrontation. At this point, we do have Juggernaut spawning in, but I am choosing to focus again on Claw and bringing him down, so we don't have to worry about as much bouncing around during this fight, which honestly I think is the winning combination that you need to keep in mind. You do need to watch out for attacks coming in from Electro, as the electrical particle effects will cause you to stagger out and leave you vulnerable to other attacks incoming from the opponents in the arena. At this point, we've used Adamantium Uppercut and Wolverine's Falling Aerial Attack to take out Claw, so it just remains to take on Juggernaut and Electro. The team isn't looking so great, but we have all of our extreme attacks online, so blasting all of those off, we are able to fully stagger out Electro and just about burn down Juggernaut, which we were able to finish him off using some of Gambit's Deadly Deal. Electro is just about done, and one final attack there from just a base level attack does take him out, and that grants us the 3-star clear on the first go. Today's fifth and final rift is the level 47 Wave Rift, where the goal is to defeat 200 enemies in Wakanda. This is similar to one of the other fights that you are familiar with from our character highlight and character spotlight series. It's just in a different location with some higher difficulty enemies, because this is a higher difficulty rift. This is pretty simple to get through. The first criteria you need to keep in mind is we need to deal 700,000 damage with extreme attacks. Honestly, if you blow them all off at the exact same time, you're going to have absolutely no problem meeting that threshold. As a matter of fact, you'll more than supersede the 700,000 plus. Additionally, you'll need to clear this out in 3 minutes and 40 seconds or less in order to get that 3rd star. So let's jump into that action and what this fight entails. Now, right off the bat, we're greeted by some opponents from the hand, and Gambit is really one of the best opponents or best characters that you can use in this fight, because he lays down large areas of effect with that deadly ground to deal some consistent damage to the grunt enemies and really burn most of them down, if we're being honest. So keeping his deadly ground as up and as frequently as you can is always a smart move to make, especially if you prioritize this low ground where most of the enemies tend to hang out. We're wanting to switch around to some of our other characters in order to take on these grunt enemies, and you do pick up some rare item drops as well in these rifts, which is always kind of fun to see. Miles is also a really good character to use in these type of interactions, because he has his Electro Web, which stays out and deals some damage to the opponents in the area, but also the Venom Strike pairs very well with that style of attack. I'm switching over to Gambit again to make use of some of his Deadly Deal, as well as his Dangerous Ground attacks here to set up the area of effect and keep that damage rolling. We're at about 80 enemies taken out at this point, and we should have our extreme attacks online momentarily, but it's about at this time that the game decides to throw an additional quirk, where it throws in Kamala Khan, or Miss Marvel, as an additional enemy that you need to take out. Now, when these enemies pop in, I switch over to Wolverine, primarily because his Adamantium Uppercut lays in exorbitant amounts of damage to not only their stagger, but also their standard health pool. And unleashing all of our extreme attacks there, you'll notice we get almost 1.5 million damage in, and manage to take out Miss Marvel in the process, so that's one less enemy that we need to worry about. At about the 130 mark, you do have another boss character popping in. This is Spider-Gwen, and it can be a little bit annoying with those web shots that she throws out, as it can knock you out of your own extreme attack animations. But we resort to a similar tactic using Wolverine's Adamantium Uppercut to lay in reliable damage against Spider-Gwen. And with a couple of cycles of that attack, we're able to take her out pretty handily. We've also got our extreme attacks back online yet again, as we have more and more enemies spawning in, and you want to throw those out as quickly and as efficiently as you can, because it allots reliable damage to all enemies in the nearby area. We've got about 25 enemies left to take on here, so you're really just wanting to cycle through the different characters on your team and take full advantage of their synergy attacks as you go through this difficulty here. Wolverine's Adamantium Uppercut is one of the strongest attacks in the game, in my opinion, and it very quickly burns through enemies that have those stagger bars and leaves you one less thing to worry about. With about 10 enemies left here, we have almost all of our characters with their extreme attacks online, but honestly, I only had time to pop off the extreme attacks of Wolverine and Thanos, as that gives us the final criteria that we need to clear out this rift with all 3 stars. So that's going to do it for today's video. As you can see, we now have 10 of these rifts cleared out with the 3-star criteria, and we will be focusing on 5 more this time next week. So again, if you're enjoying this series, leave a like on the video. Don't be afraid to leave a comment, as that greatly helps me out. And once again, if you're not already, please feel free to subscribe to the channel. The subscription is free and easy, and I bring videos to you on a daily basis. Thanks again for all your support, and I hope that you have a fantastic rest of your day.